But will the Prime Minister, having false started last year, call the general election this Sunday? Tune in to Nationwide Radio this Sunday at 6 p.m. for live coverage of the People's National Party's mass rally in Halfway Tree, St. Andrew. Here are analysts Richard Dickey Crawford, Nadine Spence, Evan O'Reilly, and Sarah Goff weighing on the issues.
It's okay, they'll come and fix it. Okay. Just relax, they'll come and fix it.
Meeting in Halfway Tree this Sunday, January 31. Don't.
That's a plain advisory?
Yes.
Due to Nationwide 90 FM's broadcast of the PNP's public meeting in Halfway Tree Square on Sunday, January 31 at 6 p.m., there will be no hearing of the Voice of Islam and Immaculate Moment. Nationwide apologizes for any inconvenience.
Should I call George at this point then? Okay. Yo, G. Alright, we are starting bang on 6 o'clock. So hold on. Alright, cool, hold on. You have a headset? Oh, shucks. Oh, dear.
Dicky, lift the microphone towards. Right. Okay.
People are streaming.
Ready? Good evening. Welcome to Nationwide on a Sunday evening. It's 2016. And I suspect it will mark the official beginning of the general election campaign. The campaign that wasn't to be an election last year, but it's well and truly on this year, 2016. I'm Cliff Hughes.
And I'm Dennis Brooks. Good evening, Cliff. Good evening to the listeners and to our panel.
Good evening, Dennis. And we should tell you, for the next 4 hours or so, we'll be here to hear what the Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller will say in Halfway. It's widely expected that she will announce the date for the country's 17th general elections since Universal Adult Suffrage in 1944. It will be the third time Mrs. Simpson Miller will be given the privilege and the awesome power of naming an election date. She did so for the first time in September 2007, and then, of course, it will be the second time because she lost in 2007, came back in 2011, so it will be the second time she'll be given that awesome power to name the general elections date. In our studios, we have with us Nadine Spence. Good evening, Nadine.
Good evening.
We also have Richard Dickey Crawford.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening,
everyone.
And Susan Goff. All three Jamaicans.
Good evening, everyone.
Right, that you know very well. And in Halfway Tree, we have George Davis and Abka Fitzhenley. They are in Halfway Tree, and they will be telling me if what's the situation like in Halfway Tree. I think we have George. No, we don't have George online yet, but we're going to be going to George in a little while to tell us what's happening in Halfway Tree. So, Dennis, ladies, gentlemen.
Yep.
Is it here? Is it today? Is it tonight?
Well, something is happening today, right now. Something is happening tonight. And
the comrades are massing in Halfway Tree.
Yes, I just passed on the way down here. Buses parking at Waterloo Road, and people walking down, so they're coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Flow has begun.
And I think the air of expectation, people are expecting that something is going to be announced that is not just an ordinary party meeting.
Yes.
The nation is expecting and people are waiting. If you walking, just coming down on the road a while ago, people are gathered in groups. We're not going to be in halfway tree, but are making comments about the Prime Minister being touched. So we're going to hear it tonight.
Right.
Yeah, I would say definitely, and I think given the lead up in last year, towards the end of last year, which didn't result in anything, I think it would be really difficult to have this mass meeting in halfway tree, which has so much significance, and then not an announcement. So I suspect we are probably in for the announcement.
Yes. A little earlier this afternoon, we got some sad news. A coaster bus carrying PNP supporters was in an accident in Chalky Hill in St. Anne. Based on 2 eyewitness reports, the bus was carrying approximately 30 PNP supporters, 10 of whom sustained injuries and had to be taken to hospital. So I made an appeal to the comrades then, and I repeat it now. It's not too late. You will get to halfway tree in time. Don't speed, okay? Well, George Davis is in halfway tree. Good evening, George. Yes, I'm hearing you. Good evening, sir. How is it going there?
Orange ball.
It's early days. Yes. So, any of the officials there yet? Exactly. Paint a picture for our listeners who are not in front of their television screens yet. Exactly where is the stage positioned? Looking south towards downtown Kingstown? Yes. Okay. All right. No incident to report yet, George. All's well? Yes. Thank you very much, George Davis, and he is along with Abka Fitzhenley in Halfway Tree. They'll be telling us what's happening in the square. It's a square that has been a hunting ground for election announcement in recent times, dating back to the mid-1980s. Right, Dickie Crawford? You're a little older than myself. Yes. There was a time when it was where South Parade.
Yes, Norman Manley statue, Bustamante statue.
Yes.
That was a big thing then.
But then in the 80s, it shifted to Halfway Tree.
It shifted up a bit up to Halfway Tree, correct? Yes.
Yes.
And let's not overlook Montego Bay.
Sam Sharp Square in 1980.
Very, very prominent location as well.
When 150,000 proved wrong.
Well, yes, in effect. And then there have been recent big bumper crowds in Mandeville. I remember that's where Andrew announced the date of the election, remember?
Oh, yes, Mandeville. Yes.
A huge crowd was there.
All right, so Dennis, you were on the road. Coming into today, I see the Gleaner reporting this morning an interview done with the Prime Minister. And I find it a rather interesting interview.
I was rather interested by it. The fact of the interview was interesting because we don't see that, we haven't seen that during her premiership. Her doing an interview with a major media house. And where the interview went, Cliff, I thought that was interesting as well. You know, touching some of the sensitive issues of whether or not she's accusations that she's been weak as a leader, and some of the hurtful things that have been said. Those are some of the things that have been trending on social media.
Well, let me hear the panel on it. Beginning with Susan Goff. What did you make of the Prime Minister's interview with the Gleaner today?
Well, again, as Dennis said, it was unusual for you to have this interview because the Prime Minister has not, in fact, made herself available for many interviews during the course of her tenure. I think also one of the things that did strike me was the way in which the fact that she made very clear that she was not in the departure lounge of her political career, that she was still in charge of the party, and that she wouldn't be going anywhere at this point because there really wasn't anyone else within the party who could lead at the level that she is leading.
Certainly that is going to be controversial.
Very strange, because I think also the timing of that, at a point when you're presenting to the public your slate of candidates from your party who surely you want to make seem as competent as you have said they are, but yet there is this proviso being attached to it which says maybe good in their positions, but as party leader.
Let me read the exact quote for those who haven't seen the papers yet. She said, "I am carrying out my responsibilities, and it is one day at a time. If you can show me someone in the PNP right now who will be able to pull the people when they go out there on a campaign trail, then I could say yes. But if you can't show me that person, then I can't tell you goodbye." And she goes on, I have a responsibility to my country and my people. I don't intend to be in politics forever, but I'm going to give of my time and my service to my party as long as I feel it is necessary and my right time. When I decide, I decide. No. Nadine, what is that saying?
I think that most people in Jamaica who, what we had been predicting was Portia Simpson Miller leading the party into this election, perhaps a win, and then eventually handing over to somebody else. I mean, this declaration at this point, I think, is somewhat shocking, and I think it perhaps I think is a little bit premature. Mm-hmm. And I think...
Or deliberate.
Or perhaps premature.
I think it's deliberate.
And like you, I'm wondering, what does this do if the people in your party have read that today?
But they do read it, and they would have read it, and the tongues have begun to wag.
Dickie Crawford, one of the things that many people have said is that several of the contentious issues in the party, the squabbles over seats, have been people jockeying for power in the immediate post-Simpson Miller era. People are already beginning to move beyond Simpson Miller and thinking, well, I want this person here and I want that person there. Immediately, she's saying, hold your horses. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. So you can cut all of that out. Would you agree?
Yes, definitely, and it's very profound. I think she used the occasion, you're right, deliberately, to hit back at the critics, to hit back at anybody who said, boy, I'm not so sure you are the right person to lead the party. She used you, Cliff, when you did that famous one with the hair. They say I had cancer. Yes, I think I recall that very well.
Yes.
They said I had false hair, etc. So it's a hit back. It's a big occasion. The Prime Minister has not, as you rightly said, been known to give many interviews and so. So here is this big occasion. Actually, I think it was a speech, a statement that was directed more at the party than at Jamaica.
Yes. And a particular faction of the party. And it is an open secret for those who follow the politics closely that the so-called Peter Phillips people who want to see Peter take over the reins of the party have been letting on that the elections are going to see the PM spending no more than 2 years max, possibly a year after, and then making way for Peter. Yes? Now, what the Prime Minister did in this interview, and this is why I said it was deliberate.
Knocked away that argument.
She's saying, listen, you cannot win this election. Note her language. It's not about running country. It's not about governing. It is about campaigning.
Yes. And if there's anybody else who can campaign as good as I,
yes, when you step forward,
then you come now.
Yes.
Because I'm here to show you that I am the person. Yeah.
She said, for all the critics who say I'm weak, put me in an open-top bus where I drive on the road, and those who are criticizing, put them beside me and see who the people shout for. She's still of the view that it's about Portia's winnability.
Yes.
Yes? She is not taking into consideration the polls. The internal polls, the external polls have shown that the love affair with Portia is over. She's clearly not in that zone at all. The love affair with her is over. But she's saying, I am the leader. I am the one who's going to win. So, let me hear.
I guess I'm thinking of the polls. The last polls, I think, kind of created a kind of wind, I think, under her wings, where, yes, either of both parties lost support. But at the same time, the PNP came out the better party in respect of maintaining more of that support that had been predicted they would get if an election was called in December. And I think that having happened, the PNP overall, in the different quarters that the PNP exists and the different groups and factions, I think is expressing much more confidence. And I think if it is that the PNP overall is expressing much more confidence, and clearly Portia is also going to be feeling more confident in her own ability to manage the party and in her now ability to hit back at her critics, regardless of where the critics are. And I think that
the question that they will have to deal with tomorrow morning at the campaign committee meeting is, one, strategy. How is the campaign going to be mounted? Around who? The leader or the leaders? Yeah?
And I think that this is one of the interesting things, that whereas there is definitely a strong constituency that still is very supportive of Portia.
Yes.
And that is part of the hardcore of the party. I think that beyond that, there is a category of supporter who might be interested in supporting Peter, who's going to be looking on and listening to this and thinking in terms of, but what does this mean if I vote with the belief that in another year, another couple of years, we will transition into new leadership? But here we have the leader saying, I'm not going anywhere. Does this foreshadow more internal tugs and pulls and fights and instability? Will it reopen old wounds? What impact is this going to have on the party as leadership for the country if there are still these internal squabbles, pulls going on?
And in another way, it raises a question, and I'd love to hear you on this one. It raises the question of whether or not you're going to be campaigning on governance. Because, politics gets you into government, but governance keeps you there. Peter Phillips is the man who will be saying, my record shows that, look, the Peter Phillips supporters are saying, we're the shining stars. He is the shining star of the administration. It's not you. But she's saying, I'm the one who gets you in there to be the shining star. What is going to appeal to the electorate?
That's an interesting formulation that you have just given us, and that's a fact, And, in a sense, the charge was made, the baton was thrown down, the gauntlet was thrown down. There was this elaborate portrayal of Peter just saying, listen, my job, I'm just going to watch the economy and I'm going to help Portia to win the next election.
Yes.
But really, I am coming. You would have read that, it's a statement beautifully written and presented that here's the future leader of the People's National Party. And that is why I think you and I are on the wavelength of saying, listen, this is a hit back, this is a deliberate thing. You can talk all you want about certain things, I am the winnability factor, and how we're going to work this out. We have just started this discussion, but this takes you right across to the future already. How is the PNP going to resolve and deal with this issue? Because it's no longer a secret, really,
Yes.
It's
But in looking to the future, we need to look back at history. I take you back 20 years. I witnessed the virtual unraveling of the Labour Party. When Siaga made a similar statement.
Exactly.
Post 1993, the elections of March 30, he was like, I'm the only one who can do it.
Who can do it. And it led to the splitting of the JLP, the formation of the NDM in 95, the Western 11, and we saw what that has done to the Labour Party's electoral fortunes and viability for the last how many years? They have not been able to win state power except briefly in 2007 for 4 years when they barely won. Yeah?
And that's exactly what I was thinking. I was saying, if, again, perhaps one of the reasons why the Prime Minister has interviewed so irregularly is that tendency to not be strategic in the things she says. Because that's exactly what I was thinking. How could you say that on the eve of this moment, and given what you have just walked out of? It's not, and given, again, the kind of expectation that Peter Phillips is the next person who is going to walk into leadership of the PNP. It doesn't make sense that the Prime Minister, well, to me, would so publicly make that kind of a declaration in the midst of all of the tensions that I would imagine
you are just trying to put a lid on.
Boy, Nadine, I have to agree with you. That was not good politics at all. The timing is terrible.
But bear in mind also that she is a Prime Minister who has led by delegation. She's never been the one, she's always been the one to say, it's not me, it's about the team. Yeah? So I don't have to get my hands in everything. I am a leader who gives people room, and it's all about my team.
But that's the point she made in this very interview about when she was asked about perceptions of her being a weak leader. She said, no, she has to give room. It's a democratic party. Yeah? Totally dodging the question, of course. Yes? She has been found wanting at critical moments. But then she resiles to this thing about, it's a free and democratic party.
I just also wonder, going back to the impact on the party, what the impact is on those who are in fact strong supporters of Peter Phillips, who are in fact supporters of other, whichever MPs, and in some minor cases, potential leaders in the party. To have the party president, say this in such a public way. Yes, she is re-establishing or reiterating her control, her supremacy within the party. But how do the supporters of these other persons who are...
They can't be happy.
No, it may not turn them off from an actual vote.
No.
But it may not leave them
a bitter taste.
Yes. You know.
Bear in mind also that we don't just have the Peter Phillips set. We have the people who are very loyal to Philip Paulwell, who has aspirations.
Yes.
We have people loyal to Peter Bunting. He has aspirations, and there are constituents coalescing around those people.
Yes.
So it's not just Phillips, you know.
Yeah.
Phillips represents the oldsters who support him. There's the Youth Brigade and the East Kingston Mafia, as they are referred to often in the party.
But I think that Gleaner front page of Man of the Year, though, was to me one of the most profound statements in our history, that while we have within one party a leader, the Gleaner and those who would have orchestrated that moment had Peter Phillips as Man of the Year. And
we have another leader.
We have another leader.
Leader.
Clearly, this is declaring that this is leader in waiting.
Yes.
You know, and again, to kind of shore up support, I think, and that we have competence here, because there's this belief that we're not quite so sure of what is happening with this current Prime Minister. So
yeah, I think though that this is also something that a leader who has, as you said, Dennis, led by delegation, has to contend with. If you are having the major policy and governance issues being handled very publicly by your various ministers, if you are refraining from stepping in on many of these burning issues. If your voice is not being heard on a regular basis, leading in terms of the issues, etc., then there must come a point at which some of those who you are delegating to will in fact rise in public estimation, in public popularity, recognizability, etc. And how do you deal with that as a leader? Are you able as a leader to do this in a private way where your ministers know you hold power and know that whatever they are doing and saying is not in fact a threat to your leadership because you are so firmly based within the party? That do you have to make this kind of public statement, a sort of diminishing the others within to exert or hold on to your control?
Does raise a lot of questions. That's
just before you come in, Dickie, let me go to Twitter. We should tell our tweets, Dennis, that we'd like to get their input on the discussion. You can tweet me at Cliff Nationwide Radio. Nadine, or your Twitter feed?
Nadzik.
Nadzik?
Yes.
Sue?
Susie Q.
Right. Richard? No. He's not in Twitterverse.
I have forgotten. Can you imagine? I forgot my
your password.
You can change it in
I know.
You can change
So I'm going to promise you I'm going to do that.
You can also, listeners, follow us on Periscope. I'm periscoping at DENNISBROOX, and that's also where you can tweet me. We would also like to chronicle your tweets using hashtag NNN Election 2016.
And Kevin Barker on Twitter. And, our listeners are very bright, and they make connections. Kevin Barker says at Cliff Nationwide and Dennis Brooks and Susie Q2, PSM versus Peter Phillips, Tony Blair versus Gordon Brown. Of course, those of us who are into British politics, the famous rivalry between Tony Blair, the former Prime Minister, and his Chancellor, and the political twin, Gordon Brown, also spilled into the open when Brown's people felt that Tony should go before Tony and his people felt it was time to go. And British politics is replete with rivalries between the occupants of number 10 and number 11, Dublin Street.
Thatcher had her own problems there too.
Yes.
When everybody felt she should go, and she said, "Boy, I'm staying." I'm almost the only person who can hold the thing together again.
Yes.
But I think it raises the issue. I think Dr. Revolutionary had raised it about popularity versus governance.
Yes.
Are we into an age where we have moved past popularity politics and we are more calling for good governance? And it would seem to me that Peter Phillips kind of raises the issue of what good governance and what sticking to a disciplined course of action can lead to if we are to believe the stats that are now.
Nadine, a lot of us in the articulate minority would love to think so, wouldn't we? But is it really?
It is happening. But I mean, the People's National Party's show, the statements, the whole competition internally indicates this. I think this is the dilemma the People's National Party has. I mean, politics in general in Jamaica has a problem. It has to shift from the personality and the vibrations and so forth and so on and move to substance. No, this is what is the dilemma that the PNP is facing. If we read what we read and we are not making it up, the substance, as it were, resides with Peter Phillips and his management of the economy.
Yes.
And so he has been declared by people.
It's a platform that they're now using to make the case for the second term.
Right.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
So why, and therefore it was really unfortunate for the Prime Minister herself to have kicked over that platform.
Yes.
Because one would have thought that that would have been to everybody's good. Right?
Hold it there for us. We're up on our first break. We're listening to a special edition of Nationwide this evening, coming to you from Bradley Avenue and looking at what's happening in Halfway Tree. Stay with us. I know this
It can't be going down well.
cannot be. I know it's not. Huh? I'm not hearing you. The Peter people are livid.
Just spoke with Abka. He says he's hearing a nomination date for February 9. Want to hear from him? That's all he. Or you want to?
Don't predict the number.
Okay.
That's why for the birthday.
Yeah.
Edna's birthday. Edna's birthday.
It's election day. February 29.
So if it's 21 days.
Yes.
Yeah,
Tell him no, not yet.
No, okay.
A little closer.
That was a paid announcement by the Jamaica Labor Party.
February 29th?
If it's
Yeah.
important to you,
It's important to us.
And that's the
let
date the PNP
Nationwide
won in
90FM
72.
be your
Yeah.
first choice for your live broadcast.
We'll
You
track
know that
traffic
they
to
like the
your
signs
company,
and
increase
symbols.
your publicity,
Yes.
and work with your budget.
Reach your target audience with
I
high
think they're
quality
taking too
audio
much
both
by this
on air
latest
and
poll.
online.
Nationwide
just
90 FM
ran
should
with it.
be
They
the
never even
driving
analyzed
force to
it.
execute
They need an
your live
opportunity.
broadcast.
They just
Contact
ran
our
with
Go
it.
in and
team
do
today
it.
at
And also, I mean, I really am not sure what budget is going
Nationwide
to
90 FM.
Entail.
maybe not, but
Covering your events.
You know, Peter has always said, there are no plans for wholesale budget cuts. And I keep, every time he says it, I would say, so what are the plans? Retail cuts? Because he's leaving himself some room
But
to
then
say, you know.
I don't know, you did research methods, right? When I studied the Anderson numbers, this is my theory. If I were to think I'm worried, 22% not participating, and I tell you that, okay? 17 undecided, 10 not talking, 27, PNP 27, JLP 23.
Just
Why PNP supporters this close to election are going to tell you they're voting PNP?
of course.
Yes.
They're going to tell you traditionally PNP supporters are the ones who are quite vocal.
Yeah.
The people who are not hardcore Labourite and who may be leaning to Labour, keep quiet.
To me, there needs to be much more analysis. of
Yes.
those polls. Because they need to go into those on the people who haven't said and see who they are and perhaps kind of figure out who they would have voted for. And if you can guess that 17% who are saying they're not going to, they're undecided, where would they have been the last time? To kind of get an idea of where this is going to
I think the PNP making a big mistake going on those polls.
Yeah.
And that 10%, that 27% are the sleeping
Promote your
Yeah,
business
and
or
number that
results,
is
I
going to
remember it's
go
on
Labour.
decline, you know, the polls is reading on decline.
Let us be your
I mean, I
one-stop
think
solution
also the
for
other
all your
factor to
online
put into
marketing
that
needs.
is how
Build
many
your
of
brand,
those
increase
seats were
profits,
won
boost
last time.
growth,
Oh, yes.
web background.
Yeah, we're gonna come to them.
It's a
Yeah.
marginal, far more marginal than ever before.
Yeah.
And if it was, and the other thing for me now is if the JLP steps up its presence and its campaign, if it has a way to do that, what will it mean for the fact that there were so many people who intended to vote December and have since then said, we haven't seen you, where were you, and it looked like we're not serious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks for staying with us here on Nationwide 90 FM, providing you with wall-to-wall coverage of this, what we expect to be the announcement of the date of the next general elections. We're in studio with Susan Goff, with Nadine Spence, and with Richard Dickey Crawford. Cliff Hughes is on Periscope for the first time. All of the people asking for Cliff Hughes on
Really?
Periscope. Here he is. Bonjour to Paris in the house, also to Vancouver. I saw somebody, what's this? Cliff, let she call it. She's not making no mistake. Someone says, saludos de Ecuador. Thank you, Ecuador, for joining us as well.
Mean that person is in Ecuador?
Yes, we have listeners
Oh.
all over, viewers all over the world. Someone is
Oh.
in Paris as well. Someone says, hello from Washington, D.C. to you, Cliff.
Hello.
So they're all here. If you'd like to see what's going on in studio and the behind the scenes, you can feel free to hop on to at DENN NISBROOX. We'll also repost it on YouTube. Fluffy Diva is on watching us, and Jermaine King is also.
Fluffy Diva Kitty?
Yes, she is.
Oh,
she is.
She should be here.
But yeah, I want to hear also this matter of team and leader, because the truth is that there are people who will say that Andrew Holness might be a better prime ministerial candidate, but he doesn't have the team that the PNP boasts. Mm-hmm. Some people prefer to vote for team, some people prefer to vote for leader. Mm-hmm. How do you think those leader versus team politics are going to play out in this particular election campaign? Dickie Crawford, let me hear you first.
Well, I'm not particularly happy for that statement that the Prime Minister made, that interview, because that gives you reason to raise that very argument. Why should you be going into a general election and you are raising doubts and you are casting charges and counter charges when you really want a team? You really need a team, particularly you're not in a very strong position. I mean, you're not in a runaway position. This is no runaway. You're leading basically, but that is most awkward. Yes, you hear it on both sides, and I don't know how the political parties are finally going to resolve this issue, because it is a sticky situation whereby close to 50% of the electorate have no inclination to want to vote. Why is this so, Dennis? Why is such a high number, particularly young people?
But we know.
They are tired of the team versus the leader, the substance versus the fluff. They don't see anything really chalked out, pointing out a future for them. And therefore, why am I wasting my time to get involved in this kind of politics? You know, this is the call, this is the charge, this is what rests upon the shoulders of the current leaders of the parties and the parties. What they're going to do?
I don't know. But if I may weigh in on the point, Dennis, we had a group of young people inside here on Friday evening, and they were part of a young adult summit staged by Fellowship Tabernacle the previous weekend. And one of the issues they said was raised was this very issue of governance and electing the Prime Minister versus the MP. Yes. They pointed out that, and when I asked specifically, was this a consensus view, they said yes. The young people are saying it's time for us to review, change the Constitution so that they may be given an opportunity to vote for their MP versus voting directly for their Prime Minister. And it is something I'm hearing as well in the talk program I do elsewhere. So much so, there's one constituency in particular which I think it has come up, Southeast St. Andrew, where the MP, Julian Robinson, is by all accounts a very good MP. Very good MP.
Hands down. Hands down.
And people want to vote for Julian as their MP. But as some people have said to me, I don't want Portia as our Prime Minister. But I want to vote for Julian as my MP and Andrew as the Prime Minister. And they are caught in a dilemma.
Yeah. And if you can't resolve this dilemma, you cannot pull back and re-engage the young thinking people in the country into the politics. You know, we're all saying, why don't you go out there and vote? And they will say to you, vote for what? For what, Dickie? Right. You know, that's the point.
And I think that is a very important point that needs to be followed upon, and more discussion at the level of the society. The feeling of, what does it mean to vote for politics anymore? It also brings in the whole issue of the role of the MP, because there is that role which is the constituency role, etc. There is that representational role in Parliament. And so often people see the MP as a supporter of the party line, And they want to separate that out from when you are dealing with me in my constituency, and then when the party is taking its positions at the national level. I also think that issue of why would I bother? It doesn't change anything real in my life.
It doesn't.
And many people, I know I'm hearing more people saying, no better hearing, no better bearing. And some people will argue with that, yes, but if you really look at the issues and thread them out and distinguish them, you can see where one party or the other has performed better with the economy, with crime, with whatever. But for a lot of people, it's the broad issue of, is my life any better under one or the other? Do I feel any sense of hope for my society or for myself within my society? Whichever one is in, let me hold my corner, go about and try and work with my life, the people around me, my situation, because that is not, in fact, really what is the determinant for possibility in my life.
No, in my conversations with the young people that I engage on campus, I hear that same issue about who do I vote for, and two things I generally hear is, one, the parties do not go on any kind of campaign to recruit young people. They don't look for new membership. They don't teach young people what their principles are about, and then expect them to then sign up, join, come to some meetings. This is how you become a member. What prevails is, if your family is a PNP family, then it is expected that when you come on campus, you are going to become a member of, you're going to continue that family tradition. So you would have known how to negotiate entry into the party before you came on campus. With that not being done, there's no attempt at recruiting new members to the party.
Which is sad, because there was a time when that was done in a very organized way.
Exactly.
When young people, the tertiary institutions were recruiting grounds for both the Labour Party and the People's National Party. And it was done on the basis of ideas, ideology, what you believe in.
Well,
that is not being done now.
So there's no attempt, I think, at and Dennis, you can be a mayor. There's no attempt at recruiting, wooing, inviting members to a party. There's no engagement of young people like that.
Well, you see the PNPYO, the G2Ks, the Young Jamaicas, and the Patriots. They'll have their thing, but what invariably, these groups are becoming smaller and being populated by people who are, their families, as you suggested, are already in the politics.
They're almost silent. I remember the days when the PNPYO, almost every month somebody was going to be expelled or suspended because they dared to challenge a philosophical or policy weakness.
I think since Damien Crawford has become an MP, the YO has gone silent, for instance.
There again.
Except parroting the mother party.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the question for me is, yes, there is apathy, but we have to recognize that you're now on Periscope, you're on Twitter, you're on Facebook. We're engaging people in different ways because we're engaging a new generation of people who are used to a particular way of doing things. We're not even using the old ways anymore to try and engage people. In the days when ideas and public meetings and sitting down to hold a lime or groundings or whatever it was the thing to do, that was done. But now there's no public engagement of anybody who was not born into a party.
But then that goes back to the kinds of MPs that we have, because different MPs will try to engage. One of the reasons why Julian Robinson is such a popular MP and such a liked MP, I wish he was my MP personally, but I mean, I just happen to live in the wrong community.
It's true.
But Julian is present on Twitter, and he's not present on Twitter in a piecemeal way. He's really there, and if you tweet him and ask him a question, he'll actually answer you.
In a conversation.
Exactly.
Easy, right?
But meanwhile, you have the Minister of Technology who hasn't tweeted since December of 2011.
You see, you know what? The real problem seems to be that the hardest thing in the world to get rid of it, the political parties and the political people are holding on to this thing about the one supreme leader. That's what it's all about still. And that is what is manifesting that interview this morning in the newspaper.
But Dickie, you mentioned the role of the one supreme leader, and every election cycle we always talk about the leader's coattail factor.
Yeah.
How many seats is people are hanging on to the leader's coattail, depending on the leader to win their individual seat, because some seats are won by the MP themselves. Some seats is the leader win the seat for you. How much of a coattail?
It's becoming fewer. The coattail is becoming more threadbare. You know, the coattail does not have that pull anymore.
But I think also.
All right, I think just a sec. I think we're going to go back to halfway tree now. Abka Fitzhenley, good evening, Abka. Abka.
Good evening to you, Cliff. Very good evening to your panelists and to all Jamaica. Bumper crowd as you'd expect here in halfway tree. The crowd all the way from North Odeon Avenue, going all the way down to York Pharmacy and beyond. What's currently happening is that the PNP chairman, Bobby Pickersgill, is addressing the audience, introducing the comrade. The PNP chairman, Robert Pickersgill, is currently on stage introducing the comrades from all across Jamaica, from Portland, St. Mary, etc., and the respective constituencies. Anticipation. It's almost as if everyone is anticipating the arrival of the Prime Minister and the PNP President, waiting to hear exactly when election day will be.
So I hear the tempo is really being increased in the background, Abka. The place cork already.
I am barely hearing your Cliffy.
I'm saying it seems like the place cork already. No, he's not hearing me. Yes, I'm saying it seems like the place is already cork.
Jam-packed, as I said, from North Odeon Avenue all the way far past York Pharmacy. A bumper crowd accurately describes what's happening here.
When you talk with the comrades, Abka, what are they saying about the party's chances at the elections?
Hello?
Yes. All right. A little later when we reconnect with you.
I lost you when you speak with the comrades.
Yes. What are they telling you about? What is it they want to talk about?
They want to talk about exactly when election day. They want to talk about exactly when election day is. It's almost as if they want to get it out of the way and decide one way or the next. Decide who will take charge of Jamaica House going forward. Era of expectation. Really, they're anticipating the arrival of the PNP President and the Prime Minister. A lot of debate, Cliff, right here on the ground concerning a lot of debate concerning when exactly election day will be and when nomination will be. But I can tell you, I am told that most likely the Prime Minister will announce February 9 as nomination day. I wait to hear exactly when election day is.
Okay. Thank you very much, Abka.
Absolutely.
Good. Abka Fitzhenley there in halfway tree. That's a massive crowd.
It is. All the way stretching past York Farm.
Yes.
I think something Abka said is very pertinent at this point. For a lot of people right now, the focus is on when is the nomination day, when is the election. That's going to be, let's get it out of the way. That's the excitement at this point in time. And it again raises the issue of, in that context, how much opportunity or focus or interest is there really going to be on the issues, and what part does an analysis and weighing of issues play in people's choice for vote, and also how many people have already made up their minds and how many people are left to make up their minds, and how will they go about making up their minds at this point in time.
Well, Suzanne, we should listen to this evening for the extent to which we hear any serious attempt being made to discuss policy options facing us as a country that is in the in so much, not only poverty, but economic misery. What will we hear this evening? How will the Prime Minister make her case for a second term?
Are we expecting this to be an economy election? Are we expecting it to be a governance election?
It must be the economy. It must be the economy.
The truth of it, though, is if it's an economy election, meaning we can see that for big business things seem to be going well for big businesses. So,
but what about creating jobs to really bring unemployment down?
It can't be on that, because the people who are going to vote, if it's an economy election, are going to talk about the things that they are not experiencing. And with all due respect, the private sector cannot nominate by themselves, cannot elect the next government. So yes, we might have created a good climate for doing business, but how is the vulnerable, or how not only the vulnerable, but how is the typical Jamaican, the teacher, the policeman, the young people who are going into the job market or are not able to go into the job market, how are they navigating this economic climate?
Because if it's going to be an economy election, Dickie Crawford, then it boils down to the variables that people can understand, generally speaking, because most people don't understand tough economic concepts. People are going to look for growth. People are going to look at jobs numbers. People are going to look at poverty levels. And, you can easily play into the "are you better than you were 4 years ago" argument, and then you don't know where you're going to go for that.
So far, it has been an economy election part one. And that's the part one that the private sector, the financial institutions are happy with. Part two is to come, And that is where the governance comes in, because you're right. People are going to say, no, I want to hear what the People's National Party are going to do, what they're going to tell me about how they're going to help me to overcome my drastic situation. Where are the jobs coming from? What's going to be my opportunities? Am I going to be able to go out now and find the opportunity and the openings to start a new business, to get some financing, because I've been beaten around the bush and I can't find that? How am I going to pay for the groceries? How am I going to send my children to school?
And I think that is part of the communication task, once again, is that at one level you have, we're passing the IMF tests, indicators are good, as we said, the private sector, in many instances, more hopeful, growth is predicted, all of these things at one level. But then you do have at the other level people feeling that their salaries can't keep up with the cost of living for them, that the increases that they have had or are being promised are not likely to make a significant difference. And people's felt reality every time they go to the supermarket, go to the market, look at the expenses that they are faced with. What are the job opportunities beyond the promises? How credible are those promises going to be in the context of promises that are always made around election time, around the announcement of major projects? Yes, there will be 5,000 new jobs or 10,000 new jobs or whatever it is. How do you concretize that for people, for the youth who are finding, these very high unemployment rates, etc. So I think that some of that is going to be part of that communication task.
But are we going to have any real serious debate on that, on those issues?
I think that was not something that I think the poll revealed, that the people who indicated that they were going to vote said none of the factors of governance influenced their decision. So for me, it is the people who would have that discussion. How do we get them to vote? How do we get people, not in respect of who they choose, but just in respect of saying to the people who lead us, these are the things that we want you to address us on. And these are the things we expect you to work on when you become the next government.
Those are the people who Holness seems to be going after, because he knows he can't win it just on the Labour Party's numbers. He's been trying to go after the middle and trying to say, the undecided, the uncommitted, please look my way, listen to this. We've been hearing that kind of an appeal. Don't know if that will work, if that strategy will be successful, but it's the only strategy that he has if he wants to win.
Because the elections are going to be decided by what, if Anderson is to be believed, by that 27%, who are either undecided or who have just kept their mouths shut. That's where the elections are going to be won and decided, because 4% lead is not a big lead, just outside the statistical margin of error. Yeah, so it's all to play for in the next 4 weeks.
I think
well, you made a very important point a while ago, when you're saying that people are not interested in issues of governance, the people who are going to vote. Essentially then, what happens is the people who are going to vote are the people who are PNP supporters and are JLP supporters. And that is satisfactory enough for them. That's their cause for going out to vote. It's the 50 to 52% that are concerned with the issues of governance who are not voting.
And as we've said, there is a significant percentage of that who have no intention of voting. They have already signed out and are not on the table at all.
Yeah.
But there is another percentage that is willing to vote if there is
the right,
something
the right
there.
policies appear.
Right. But one of the things that I find interesting again, and maybe this is the old way of communication, is the absence of manifestos.
They come far too late.
Exactly. And I think it sort of signals the lack of importance that is actually placed on them by the parties and by the society. So if you get a nice, shiny, glossy manifesto being printed and put forward and posted on social media, 2 weeks in advance of an election, that really doesn't give any time to read, analyze, digest, ask questions.
Yes.
Exactly. And then how many people ever pull up the previous manifesto and go through it and sort of really say, well, of what they promised the last time, what was delivered, where are we, how many things are coming back into this same manifesto. So again, although manifestos, again, I don't know how much place or importance they have ever really played in the last couple of decades, but it's again to me a signal of that's again more something that we do to tick and be able to point to.
I want us to shift. We've been talking about the PNP and the performance of the government and its leader. I want us to shift to the opposition now. Yes, and the leadership of Andrew Holness and the Labour Party as the option, the alternative on offer at this moment. Where are they?
We don't know. I think for me, it's just that there's this big space that I know the JLP should occupy, but I do not see definitive, aggressive moves towards occupying this space. And one of the things I was thinking about just last week is, how you get, and you said it a while ago, the one done, how the JLP moves away from that in a substantial way to the point where it sells a team that works. I think might be one of the ways that it can do that. But just monitoring what has been happening since December, since then I haven't seen the JLP. And I think partly that perhaps has to be one of the reasons why the polls look like that now. So even though I would imagine that the polls were called off, there needed to have been a presence still maintained in the public or in constituencies, or going door to door or seeking people to come and work for you. But I don't know, but I just feel as if there's just this big gap that the JLP should occupy, that it is not occupying, that it is not reaching out for Andrew as the young leader, the next generation, the post-independence leader. That one would imagine that the fire and the optimism and the kind of creating a new way of looking at things, a new paradigm in the new Jamaica that he had spoken about when he was sworn in as Prime Minister, or at that point when he was leader of the country. I would have expected to see more of that.
Sue, how you see it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree to some extent with what Nadine is saying, that there seemed to have been a falling off in follow-through, in continuing the process of engagement, publicizing. I sometimes wonder how much of that may also be a result of lack of resources, finances to continue doing that level of engagement that there was, and whether in fact the JLP is in fact equipped to do it at that level for an extended period of time. Maybe there was a sense of needing to reserve some of that for when they actually had an idea of when the election was going to be. But beyond that resource issue, I think again there is an issue of finding the way to really light a fire. I think that there are within the JLP some good voices, some strong voices. I mean, Kamina has been very good, I think, in engaging, etc. But
that's Kamina Johnson Smith.
Kamina Johnson Smith, yes. But I think again that there is a sense of not a full package, not a real, push that gives you a sense of the entire grouping and who they all are. I mean, I think again that there are quite a few new faces within the slate of candidates, and I don't know if enough has been done to familiarize people at a national level with all of these new faces. Maybe they are doing more work within the constituencies, etc.
So, Dickie Crawford, the question for you, is it a lack of resources or the sheer political incompetence?
The JLP is a seesaw. You made the point a while ago that Andrew Holmes is trying his best to reach out.
All right, I'm told we have to take the break. Hold it.
Sure.
Hold it until we come back.
The Laborites start responding. The Laborites start responding.
This is a paid announcement by the Jamaica Labour Party.
They disagree completely. They say the Labour Party has to walk on water to satisfy some people.
No, but they have some good people in their team. Nobody just goes sit down. I mean, none of us was Floyd Green. West, the last person we've been introduced to is the man who traces off the sign of
The Wami?
Oh, he's the last person. He's the last person we have in our heads. And I think they just have no credibility on the economic issue. I don't know if they think anybody is taking him out. I mean, I don't know.
We are sending one lucky person on a date with Miss Kitty, the fluffy diva. Do you love Miss Kitty? Here is your chance to get up close and personal with the diva on an all-expense-paid dinner date on Thursday, February 11. Here is how you enter. In 250 words, tell Miss Kitty why you are the ultimate fan and very deserving of a romantic evening with her. The email must include the following.
I'm going to take some of the social media responses when we come back.
After Dickie.
Oh,
to fluffymисskitty@gmail.com. And don't forget to include your name, address, age, cell phone number, and a very recent photo of yourself. The deadline for entries is Saturday, February 6th, 2016. Your ultimate date with Miss Kitty awaits. And it's sponsored by Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing. Cadbury, glass and a half of milk. I love
The one
Cadbury.
thing I wonder
This is
about
really
that
great
that's a
yogurt.
Monday.
Be good to your body.
yeah, no. So the elections are usually on a Tuesday or a Thursday, but not usually on a Friday.
Mercedes-Benz GLC. Make the best of
And
every
they have like
terrain.
5 women. If you see the PNP's, JLP's list,
It's really pretty shameful.
5 or 8 women. I'm like,
Thanks for the comments. Keep them coming. I see the interaction between you guys. You can feel free to converse with each other, and I'll try to take some of your comments when we come back from the break. I'm actually gonna pause the broadcast in maybe another half an hour or so after our next break, so you can and then restart with a part 2. So that's what we're gonna do when we get back.
That's 630-1210-1216. Nationwide 90FM. Smart advertising. Value for your money.
you know, so them PNP put up them women and making a big statement with them. The optics.
Yes.
If somebody on the PNP camp will understand
If
optics.
it's in the public's interest, it's the nation's business during Nationwide at 5. The nation's business.
I think that happened Damien is going to be doing to them.
I think so too.
Get the younger, the
I think
younger
so.
Nation's
people love
business
Damien.
is brought to you by Guardian
people
Group.
worship at
Live secure, live easy.
Damien.
Yeah, man, and serving punishment.
Nationwide's job center during at your service is
And then there was
working for
another
you.
set that loved the price.
Yeah.
There was another set that loved the price. So.
You talk nonsense on me ears.
You see, Vernon head just get 2 sizes bigger. You should be able to see him. Beaming.
What?
Congrats.
Yeah, I'm at work now.
Oh, great.
No, you can't show up for me now.
Listen to Nationwide 90 FM on 90.1,
90.3.
90.7,
Ask them for me.
90.9.
or visit our flow channel on a 916. To our
So,
valued listeners, for
JLP is
questions,
having
comments, or concerns about our
in
programs,
Spanish
email us at
tonight?
programs@nationwidenewsnetwork.com. Listen to Money Vibes, Mondays to Thursdays at 5:25 p.m. on Nationwide 90FM. Actually, Money Vibes is brought to you by Money Masters Limited. News on the go. The latest stories from Jamaica and around the world are literally a finger tap away. Keep up to date with Teen Revolution 24 hours a day online via nationwideradiojam.com. Listen live, read the latest stories, hear every soundbite. Be a part of the vibrant online debate via Facebook and Twitter. Now you can get all your favorite premium Nationwide content at your convenience. Visit the Android Play Store and download it for free today. NationwideRadioJM.com. All day, every day. Team Revolution.
What was the question you asked, Dickie? What was it, Dickie? What was the question?
No, you're saying, what's my opinion of the GLP? Now, we're shifted to talk about what are they?
Oh, where are they now?
Where
Yes.
are they now? What are they feeling? How do I see it?
Welcome back, welcome back. We are watching the developments in Halfway Tree Square, where the Prime Minister, Portia Simpson Miller, is expected to name the date for the next general elections sometime later this evening. And we have it all covered for you. We have in our studios Susan Goff, Nadine Spence, and Richard Dickey Crawford. I'm Cliff Hughes.
And I'm Dennis Brooks.
So we were turning our attention to the politically where the Labour Party was now. Dickey, you're about to tell us your perspective on it.
I had tried to say I see the JLP as a seesaw. In a sense, you're up today, you're down tomorrow. Dennis made a point about Andrew being wise enough to go after the middle ground, the persons who can make the big difference, and see how he could bring them aboard. At the same time, while you are attempting that, inside the Jamaica Labour Party is the friction and the difficulties and the discord and the drifting apart amongst the members. In other words, the Jamaica Labour Party perhaps suffers a little bit more than the People's National Party from this illness of the leader being supreme and the leader and the individual versus the party. They were set on this track from Alexander Bustamante, consolidated by Edward Seaga, and they have not been able to get over that. Just recently, I remember a leading member of the Jamaica Labour Party saying, listen, whether it's good or bad, whether it's right or wrong, we don't really question the leader. That's the philosophy or the practice of the Jamaica Labour Party. We go along with the leader.
But that's not too different from falling in line with trumpet discipline in the People's National Party.
That's what I'm saying. It's a little bit more exaggerated there. And that maybe the advantage the People's National Party has is the breadth of candidates and the age grouping and all that makes the difference. the discipline is a little bit more rigid and the individualism is stronger within the Jamaica Labour Party. And it all goes to me to the point where I think that the political parties in Jamaica have been able to run this race and use this methodology because we have not been, focused enough and determined enough to bring the pressure to change the political system in the country. And I think that is we must take blame. We must take responsibility as voters and citizens too. We have accepted a lot of weaknesses from the two political parties.
We've been getting lots and lots of comments on Periscope, on Twitter, and elsewhere.
Well, let's take a few of them.
One viewer just said, I disagree with Dickie Crawford. The PNP will follow blindly. The JLP will entertain differences of opinion. Let me see if I can remember. One person did say the JLP seems like it needs to walk on water to satisfy some people. Going over back onto Twitter, there were comments like someone says that we need to be fact-checking as of now. That's important, this whole fact-checking during the election campaign in terms of things that people are saying. So Alicia Bethune says, is voting for PM separate from MP a constitutional issue or one for a PM to make? Asking that question to you, Cliff, but that's a constitutional reform matter. That has
whether it's repeated for me?
Is voting for PM separate from MP a constitutional issue or one for a PM to make?
It's a constitutional issue.
That would require fundamental constitutional reform.
Yes.
Let me see what else.
Because it would mean having direct elections for Prime Minister versus elections for your members of Parliament.
And a separation, a moving towards...
separation of powers.
Right. Moving more towards that American
system.
Presidential style.
One of the things that we need to remember is that our Constitution does not recognize political parties.
Absolutely, yes.
It is a matter of voting for the Member of Parliament, and then it is the person who the largest grouping of elected members would put forward as suggestions.
In fact, our Constitution recognizes the government and an opposition.
Right. Yes.
But what the experience of 2015 and the calling of the elections has taught us, frankly, from where I sit, Mrs. Simpson Miller has put forward the strongest case yet for fixed election date. Yeah, how she has handled the calling of the elections last year. Yeah, but it's not being, well, the opposition is on record as saying they also support a fixed election date. Well, how do we move that forward after the dust is settled in this election?
I think that's important, and I think given what we are seeing, Cliff, in terms of how people are supporting, not supporting, dropping out of the process, I think it's an important conversation for us to have, as in how do we call for, follow through with, and insist on constitutional reform so that the quality of the democracy that we talk about is maintained and people feel invested in the process of governance and running the country. And I don't know that that is something that should be left up to the parties.
Right.
I think one of the things that modern democracies are recognizing is that political parties do not do very well, are not doing as well as they used to, say, in the 1960s and the 1970s. And what is happening in political parties in other places that people are seeking to modernize, to reform, to find different ways of engaging the populace, to get people back on board. But I think in our part of the world, people are not doing that. People are maintaining the same status quo, and political parties are being allowed to kind of continue the same way they did in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, when people are obviously not satisfied with them. And so the question that I ask is, are political parties the only game in town? Are these the only way we engage our democracy? And if it is that people are dissatisfied and disenchanted, how do we then re-engage the process outside of the political party? Say, for example, they don't want to take forward the idea of reform. I remember the last election, after the election, the big commitment from the Prime Minister was we would become a republic. I expected that would have been the first deliverable in terms of what was promised. That was not done. And I think, just expectations and them being not met is leaving more and more people to say, you know, this is not working for us.
I think, yeah, that when you talk about promises or how do we go about change, and that we can't leave this to the political parties, it's very important for us as the citizens in the country to recognize that some of the reforms that we may be talking about may in fact be reducing the power of the existing power or control of the parties over resources, over legislation, over whatever it is, and that is it realistic to feel that the parties are going to enact this kind of legislation or these changes, or see them as priorities, or give them as much weight as many in the society would want to see, when what may happen through this is a dwindling of the power of party, of political party. I think, for example, of the campaign finance reform legislation. And remember that prior to the 2011 election, there had been a push in the months before to get this legislation passed, and then it was said, it's too short a time, it cannot be done before the 2011 election, but certainly by the next election it would be passed in time for that. Well, here it is. We are now, at the doorstep of the next election, and that has not in fact been passed, and part of the reason is that the political parties, their representatives, are not keen on these changes.
And what's presented before us, many people say, is toothless.
Right.
Precisely.
Here's the dilemma, Susan, based upon that amazing submission. Listen, our political parties, political leaders are very expert at evading the issues. And therefore, and in our system, the only real genuine measure of accountability to hold them responsible is that election. And then you say the election is something that the party leader can decide when to call it within a 5-year and 3 months system. So all the marbles are in the bag of the party leader and the party. And that is the real big difficulty. Now, what we have to find, not that the yes, in the Caribbean, for example, our own place here, and certainly in Jamaica, the party is almost the only game in town. Many more people are opting out from playing that game, a significant amount, and particularly young people who never knew who Bustamante was, or Manley, or even Marcus Garvey, some of them, or Bob Marley. So these things don't hold them. They just look at what's happening. It's not working for us. We're not going anywhere. Let me opt out of this. The thing is how to re-engage, how to find that methodology. Because look at you, all the work that you do in what we call NGOs and things like that. What do the governments do? What do the parties do? They co-opt you, neutralize you, make you feel a part of the process. And you say, boy, we're getting somewhere. But you're not getting anywhere, because right around the corner is the next election.
I think also another thing that we need to look at is the fact that, and this isn't only in Jamaica or the region, but worldwide, the ideological differences between the parties has shrunk. So that very often it's not in fact about ideology. It is more in fact about management. How best will this party or that party manage the resources of the economy? How strong is their governance, their engagement, etc. And that, I think, is something that we are faced with as well.
And in the face of an IMF, because some people are saying, and we can agree.
I think we have George Davis. Just a moment. George, good evening again. Yes, George? We're not hearing him. George Davis? Yes, we're hearing you now, George. Yes, we're hearing you. Go ahead.
Mr. Robinson, the crowd on the hand, even we'll get to the crowd, how do you describe it this evening? Well, from what I've seen, it's a bumper crowd, and I can't see everybody. I can only see down Halfway Tree Road. I don't know what Hope Road looks like. I don't know what the rest of Constant Spring Road like. I don't know what Hagley Park looks like. But we expected, and the comrades have turned out in enthusiastic numbers. In terms of your own political experience, how would you describe the expectation this evening? Well, people have been waiting for, they're now For a long time. And if I use constituency as a gauge, last night we anticipated some numbers and we had to almost double what we anticipated. And that was just the enthusiasm of people who wanted to come out. So the comrades are ready. We're waiting on our party leader to fly the gate, and we are onward and forward to victory.
Your national campaign director says he senses that the Jamaican people sees the need to give the PNP another term. I'm sure you agree.
I agree. We have been through a difficult 4 years. We have had to undertake an economic reform program, which has had its difficulties. But we are seeing some of the benefits with greater job creation, with more companies growing, profiting. We are seeing the stock exchange operating at record levels. Unemployment still remains an issue, but we have taken the tough decisions to put the economy back on track. And that is more than anything else why I believe we should be given a second term. We have demonstrated the fixity of purpose. We have made the hard decisions. And we have the team that can continue to deliver the economic benefits for the people of Jamaica.
With comrades, you expect the rest of Jamaica war unsure. What's your message to them?
We are saying to them, look at the leadership, not the talk, look at the action. We have delivered on the promises that we have made. We recognize that we don't have a perfect country. Recognize that there's still challenges out there, particularly youth unemployment. And we will continue to work assiduously to address that. But we have to put the economy right and ensure that the benefits flow from putting the economy right. And we are in the process of doing that, and we have made significant gains so far.
Thank you very much, sir. There you have it, Julian Robinson, Deputy General Secretary.
Thank you very much, George Davis, with the PNP Deputy General Secretary, the Member of Parliament for South East St. Andrew. One of the seats we can safely say should stay with the PNP come election night.
Can't see it moving.
Yes. And which brings me to the fact that we have 63 constituencies, but based on the results of the last elections, we have 21 of those 63 seats being won by less than 1,000 votes. 21, the so-called marginals. In fact, of the 21, 12 were won by fewer than 500 votes. And of those 12, 9 are held by the PNP, 3 by the GLP. And of those, with a margin of more than 500, but less than 1,000, 9, had such a result. Yes, between 500 and 1,000, and 6 of the 9 are held by the governing PNP, 3 by the GLP.
How many of those, we should look at how many of those that were won by, for instance, under 500 were actually seats that in the last election swung in the opposite direction from where they were.
Oh, well, I could tell you that. If you could, just a moment. For example, Southwest St. Elizabeth, it swung to the GLP.
To the PNP.
To the PNP.
PNP
Yes.
from the GLP.
Right. Central St. James. Yes. It was won by.
It was
Lloyd
a new
East.
seat.
It was a new seat. Yes. Southeast Clarendon. It stayed with the GLP. Yes. Roddy Spencer. He was able to hold on to it. East Central St. James. It stayed with the GLP. Western St. Mary. It swung to the PNP. Yeah, it was held by Robert Montague. Yeah, West Rural St. Andrew, it swung to the PNP, or it stayed with the JLP. What was it? Yes,
it went away from Andrew Gallimore.
Yes, it went away from Andrew Gallimore to the PNP. Eastern Hanover, yes, it stayed with the PNP with DK Duncan. Yeah, but barely by 251. Yes, Eastern St. Andrew, won by 254. It swung to the PNP, away from the GLP, who had it under St. Aubin Bartlett. East Rural St. Andrew, it swung to the PNP. Yeah. Western St. Thomas, it stayed with the GLP, barely, 317. Southeast St. Mary, that was GLP, and it went to the PNP. Okay?
What was the last one? Southeast St. Mary.
Southeast St. Mary. Eastern St. Thomas, yes? It stayed with the PNP, 473. Those were all won by fewer than 500 votes.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So, and that's how many seats? 12. Yes. Okay, I think we're going back to George Davis. He has former PNP General Secretary Peter Bunting with him. George? Yes, George? Go ahead, George. No, we're not hearing George. Yes? Yes?
Evening. As a former General Secretary, I have some experience of these events, and I feel the vibe now is even better than it was in 2011 when we had a landslide.
So, going into this election, I mean, basically the PNP's house for re-election is built on what?
Well, on our performance. Practically every indicator is moving in the right direction. We have passed 11 IMF tests on a trot. Business and consumer confidence are at an all-time high. The economy is growing. Jobs are being created. We are on a long-term downward trend for all categories of serious and violent crime. There really would be no reason to stop the progress at this time. It's time to step up the progress.
What about those who say this level of engagement in political season has been largely absent from the administration since 2012, and that's a mark against this PNP group?
No, that's not true. There is a cycle in politics. After an election, it is time for a new administration to settle down to governing. And we faced some serious, some thought intractable problems. The economy, crime, etc., the international reputation of the country had been, trampled to pieces. So we set about governing. And of course, that means that you're not going to pay front burner type attention to political organization and political events. When we got the signal last year in the summer that, look, the political season is coming up on us now. The cycle has reached a point where we're going back in the field to campaign. Then I think it was time now to re-engage the people, ensure that they understand what we were working on has begun to yield fruits. And so this is what I think you saw in the last quarter of last year in particular, and why the polls are now reflecting that effort, which I think has successfully engaged the people and helped them to understand that we had a plan, we worked the plan, and the plan is now bearing fruits in more jobs, more improvement in the economy, greater improvement in the economy.
There have been 3 February elections since 1944. It's a 2-1. The PNP have won 2, the JLP won. There's been 1 March election in 1993. So the question is, when are we going to the polls?
That one is above my pay grade. But I would be surprised if we didn't hear in a short while.
February or March?
As I said, I don't know, but put it this way, I don't think we have long to wait. It's going to be a sprint, I believe.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yes. A big hint, it's going to be a sprint. A sprint means in 3 to 4 weeks.
As you very well know, since 44 and 1 March election. It's 2-1 to the PNP if it's held in February. And of course, we know what PJ Patterson did in 1993 in March 30 to be precise.
A PNP landslide it was. Thank you very much, George Davis, talking with the former PNP General Secretary, Peter Bunting. And you heard him there say all major indicators, including major crimes, are heading in the right direction.
Again, you hear the campaigning on superior governance, repairing reputation of the country internationally. These things are things that are very much team-centric. These things are things that kind of play up the work of
the team.
The Phillips and others. And so, that might be indicative.
Yes. What kind of campaign are we likely to see from the JLP, Susan Goff?
I'm not sure. I think that one of the things that the JLP is faced with at this point is how to keep their momentum.
So we have to take the break. So think on that while we go to the break.